The Tech It Up Talk podcast aspires to educate, inform, and inspire educators from teachers to school leaders on tips, tools, and resources to support the integration of technology into classroom instruction.
You ready? Here we go.
You're listening to Tech It Up Talk with Dr. Mac, your host with the most passion for supporting educators from teachers to school leaders with the integration of technology. Today, we are focusing on a topic that's really foundational to thriving school communities, and that is school connectedness and student support systems. But what we're also going to look into is at how these are critical pieces of school culture and how it evolves and expands in today's digital landscape. And joining me, I have Summer Beach, who is also a passionate educator and advocate for the whole child, who brings deep insight into creating school cultures rooted in care, belonging, and strategic support. So I'd like to welcome to the Tech It Up Talk podcast, Summer Beach. Thank you for joining me. How are you?
Oh my gosh, Dr. Mac, thank you so much for having me. I am thrilled to be part of this insightful conversation with you.
I'm excited to have you here. And, can you just start off and just kind of share with our listeners what was your journey in education? What did that look like? And how did you really become so passionate about being an educator and the role of connectedness in schools?
Wow. That's a big question. I'm going to have to go back, way back to elementary school. And honestly, it was first for me, school and education was a place of safety for me that I didn't necessarily have in my personal life, my home life growing up. So I found so much love and ability to thrive in a place where I felt supported by my peers and my teachers. And I feel really, really blessed and lucky that that is experience that I had because it saved me in a lot of ways. And so I was fueled by particularly my sixth grade teacher, Mrs. Schaefer. Shout out. She's still out there serving for the good. And basically, it just showed me that I wanted to spread more good and shine as well, and be a safe place and create safe places for young people, all young people, but particularly those that don't have the best of circumstances in their lives. And so, yep, I dove headfirst into education. And when I graduated from the University of Rio Grande, I I would call it a raging river of excitement and passion, and just wanting to try everything and learn everything and just being exhausted. And then I moved into teacher leadership roles, and um, had positions in various committees at schools. And I still was like, nah, I don't want to go into administration. And then lo and behold, it was kind of a situation where that leadership role was kind of handed off to me. And so as a principal and a school leader, I felt like I thrived and I really found a place where I could help cultivate teachers, and just help grow them and just model my growth mindset, and provide a safe place for them as well as students. And then since then, I mean, well, before that, actually, got my master's, and now I'm currently, I always love learning, whether it's for a degree or not, but currently a doctoral candidate in education for researching teachers' experiences on just working with transgender and gender non-binary students in high schools. So it's really exciting. And I feel like the more I know, the less I know.
Don't we all? Well, first I want to say thank you, Ms. Schaefer, for inspiring such a well-rounded individual to be able to continue to amplify the voices of others and really bring in the importance of how we as educators really go beyond just the content, but how we really connect with students, connect with the whole child, and really inspire them into their future selves. And I love that. So thank you so much. And so um, when we say school connectedness, because that's kind of our thing today, what does that really mean from a student perspective?
School connectedness is actually the student's belief that their peers and teachers, and by extension, all school staff that they may come in contact with, um, help them in not only their learning and believe that they can learn, but also believe in them as a whole person and as a person outside of just academic setting. Um, so that, I mean, it's the student's belief in what their teachers and peers think about them and how they welcome them or not welcome them, again, through various um, explicit and implicit ways.
I love that. And like, how does that impact like outcomes and behavior and achievement in their well-being?
Yeah, there was research in 2021 that the CDC reported for like during obviously the height of the pandemic, and at that point, 61 around 61% of students surveyed said that they uh, felt connected in school. And that's pretty amazing, especially since it was a very digital setting, if you will, at that time and bleak. However, I'd like to highlight that um, interestingly, all of that percentage of students who had self-reported school connectedness, they also had higher grade point averages, better attendance rates, and better academic outcomes and behavioral and social outcomes in school and participating in additional activities or clubs. And the the negative or the opposite of that, I guess you could say, is um, the out of that 61%, all of those tied kind of achievements, if you will, or outcomes, positive outcomes to that sense of school connectedness. They also found another trend, and this is the one that is really dear to my heart and makes me want to be a voice of amplification for people whose voices are often stifled or stamped out. And that is that those 61% were also very much majority identified as heterosexual, white, um, and actually even bisexual. But if transgender or lesbian or gay or any other kind of intersectionality, race, ethnicities, um, those results were actually very, very low with student connectivity and student connectedness. So alarming and sad because I was in 2021. So I'm kind of
Right.
curious now. Some yeah, it's a lot to
Yeah.
dive into.
Yeah, and that was just a time of uncertainty, I think, for a lot of people. So just to even add on, I think just in general, we felt alone in so many ways and unconnected. But just to add on the other tier of that, is alarming. And so, what are some foundational ways that schools can really think to begin building strong systems of connection and support?
It really starts with it really starts with leadership that is 100% in on embracing learning, growth, and listening to lead better. And sometimes that may mean being in uncomfortable conversations and talking about subjects that you didn't really think maybe you'd be talking about with your colleagues. But I think a core leadership team that is truly invested in the well being of all stakeholders, with students being stakeholders, um, that's the key. That's the beginning. And then I think once that happens and that education is there, then you're able to plan and collaborate and be creative. And that's what's exciting because now you have this new knowledge and you get to put it into action. And so I think it starts with listening and learning, and then it starts with action and teaching and modeling and leading amazing professional development sessions that are interactive and applicable to the classroom, and getting input then from stakeholders on what, you know, what they're looking for. What does connectedness mean for them? How do they create belonging? And I think all of that can culminate in some really beautiful celebrations in really big ways, and also in little tiny micro moments of joy every single day.
Oh, look, I love micro moments. I think they're so important because I don't think we give it attention enough. So we think we have to do these grand gestures or these grand moments, but those little micro details, those deposits mean so much that can really add up to some amazing outcomes. Now, we're on the Tech It Up Talk podcast, so you don't have to bring technology into the conversation. And so, as we think about how schools grow and students' needs become a little more complex, especially in today's society, how have you seen technology kind of help with amplifying systems of support?
I absolutely love that question. Multiple reasons why, but number one is I'm a nerd for life, like learner for life, nerd for life, all the way. In that, I know the impact that technology can have firsthand, as a administrator, using Class Dojo. Honestly, that was an amazing a tool that we were able to use. But again, a piece of that is access to the internet off of campus, and hardware or devices rather to be able to use the internet on. And so we kind of in digital literacy, that is also a key piece. We had a really, a lot of parents that needed extra support and understanding how to download an app and how to utilize it. And so we had stations that we let them come and, kind of we helped them, the teachers and the administrators help them learn how to do that for communication. I think one of the most profound things that I have personally worked with is a program called CPR3, and it's connecting people to resources. And it's a lot because it gives a literally a lifeline for students and for staff and for in communication, and sometimes potentially even saving lives. And I have a situation currently, a school that I'm working with, they are facing serious staff cuts in the fall, and especially amongst social workers. And um, there's only going to be one social worker in each building, and there's, let's say, 1,600 plus kids in one building. So it's a lot, and likely, I mean, rightly so, the current staff is very nervous about it, not just because of a paycheck, not just because they're not going to have a job, but they're nervous about it because they know um, how much impact they have made, and they're worried about the kids when they're not going to all be there to support. So, what CPR3 does and is going to do for this particular district, it is going to be used now with the current staff so it can be built out exactly the way they want it, with every sort of assessment that they want to kind of triage kids. They can put in their Excel files, etc., all these different tools that they're already using, as well as self-regulation tools. And it's phenomenal to see this team collaborate on how to make and perfect this device that is going to let students do self-assessments, and also has the ability to do telehealth, other additional services that might be provided from people off site. And it's just really magnificent to see how they're using technology to really keep these kids connected and know that they're supported. And obviously, human connection is going to be always paramount, but the way that technology can be incorporated in a variety of ways to really amplify and or solve some really, really big problems in education across the board. So yeah, that's in short and long.
Right. So you addressed a lot in just that short amount of time, right? So we're talking about connecting people to resources, and in this case, we're talking about our stakeholders as students and um, specific populations that may need more support or access to resources. But it can go either way, of course. You can always curate support. What I like about what you're sharing is that we're talking about being intentional with what the whole child needs and being intentional about ensuring that we provide it. And a lot of times I find that, and I've been in ed tech for over 12 years and implementing technology systems. And a lot of times we want to just hand students devices and expect, they're going to figure it out. They're digital natives. They have this. And that's not always the case. You really have to also think about, and this I always say leadership matters. And so going beyond and really being intentional for those schools who do elect to provide these communication tools to help support amplifying and supporting and really providing wraparound support. Because in this case of the example you gave, we may be losing staff, right? And when you lose staff, then they don't always have the resources in place. So how can we leverage and still provide a sense of that support in some capacity? And I think technology really lends itself to really being able to extend beyond that. But even with that, schools have to be really intentional about their implementation of it and how they're connecting it to an initiative and not just handing it to students, but teaching them scaffolding the process. Because if you just give says, hey, here goes a device and it has all these things on here that you can have access to, it doesn't have the same meaning as rolling out an initiative, following up through with them, creating an implementation plan to really kind of help um, adopt the process, right? And so I love that you shared that. And there's so many other tools out there, like you talked about Class Dojo. I know, like I know myself, like my daughter's school, they use Class Dojo and for communication channels for us as parents and be able to celebrate students because now when you have communication, you can now amplify that with definitely recognizing building those SEL pieces into the learning process and building community within the four walls and outside of the four walls and bringing parents into it. So I love that we have different tools like that, and of course, many school districts um, probably using an array of different things that they that they may have in their belt, but like what's the intentionality behind it, what's the implementation, and are they looking at their analytics to see what the results are, to see what kind of meaningful impact it's making so they can reassess and then go back, pivot, and close some of those gaps. So I love that. um
Yeah.
yeah. And so
Yeah, it's
are there
very,
any right.
very impactful, like to see how they are being proactive, even in not the best of situations. They're being proactive, intentional, and um, tr- using each other and the resources they have now to build the best thing that they can to support these kids. And it is, you're so right on, like with the sustainability and the thought and the reassessment, which is so key.
Right. Yeah. And so when it comes to like digital strategies used to really create responsive support systems and promote connectedness, like what other or some other additional platforms, or I would just say strategies in general, can educators consider, even with the CPR? Like what are some strategies they can consider with trying to build that those systems of support and promote connectedness in their school communities at scale?
Yeah, I mean, at scale, I think what you said really resonated. In that again, that piece of not only having it, but what are we going to do with it? What's this look like? The training and that professional support, development, coaching, feedback, reflection. It's a whole cycle. But I think at scale, I mean, a couple other things that I really love and I'm passionate also about, social emotional learning and how that can look not only in person, um, you know, with like teaching something explicitly necessarily, but I have a dear friend, Fran Kenton, who is just, she is so lovely. And she has a program called Autonomy, but it's spelled with the M-E at the end. And it's a teacher facilitated coach style program, not only for high school students for social emotional learning, but also for professional development, and for teachers. And because, I mean, we know burnout is real, right? So I think that it's really neat to see this coaching kind of strategy, because a lot of platforms are really geared towards younger kids when we're talking about like what makes you feel angry, what makes you feel sad, things like that. And this is just, it's nice to see something really relevant and mental health. Again, that's a piece that I feel like technology can be a big bridge to not only prevent, personal tragedy, in some cases, but also community, building events, and yeah, just showing that you're basically showing up in full support of not only the child and your staff and your teachers and leadership, but you're also showing out for your community, whether that means parking a bus that's connected to Wi-Fi in a community area, and you give public access to filtered Wi-Fi for, an hour on a day each week of the summer or something, I mean, things like that, I think really stand out, and making a large scale impact. But it does, I believe, start with the leader's vision and intention, and then the follow through.
I love that. And so you hit a key word for me, which is leaders. And so, what role do school district and school campus leaders play in really modeling and sustaining connected culture, even with using digital tools?
Ugh. I mean, be visible. I know that sounds very simple almost, but I think it's really important, for leadership to be present, be in the classrooms, get to know the kids, get to know your teachers as much as possible. And when it is a huge district, then ensure that on the different tiers of leadership, that those people are being super visible. And they are, by you being visible and showing interest and leaning in, to what the students in the district are doing, the exciting things that educators are coming up with, the initiatives that the principals are kind of spearheading, and what the board's supporting. I just think being there, it helps with that overall buy-in of this is the expectation, because at the end of the day, whether it is direct or indirect, your stakeholders are looking at you, to know what to do and how to be and how to act. And so I think just remembering that there is always, and I don't mean this in a creepy way, there is always somebody watching you. And as a leader, as a teacher, and honestly, I mean, even as a student, obviously, but I just think that impact that you can make, whether it is with digital, in a digital way or a technology way, a combination of that and in person, or just being there present for the everyday things, and the celebrations is really important.
Yeah, I love the celebration piece because I think about the opportunity that leaders have in really creating a connected culture, and showcases, celebrating, highlighting, enhancing their communication channels in which they're reaching various individuals from different perspectives and really being a voice to their education community. And I think, there are many digital devices and tools out there that really can help amplify. And I think being visible, leveraging these tools, modeling, and really um, showcasing what you expect or you would love for your teachers to do to really help with trickling down those practices into the classroom so that teachers and students are now comfortable with these relationships and really amplifying the communication pieces can really help with supporting students in an array of areas because each student learns differently. There's importance for personalizing the learning piece, and I think having those different communication channels and leveraging the strengths of digital tools will help really support um, balancing and really addressing the various needs of students, whether it is in a way where some students may not want to respond out in class. You may have a kid that may be shy not to speak, but you can find a way to still amplify their voice through tech, right? Where you can still hold
Exactly.
everyone accountable for participating. And I think about, sometimes we want kids to all behave the same way in class because it looks right. It's like, we're doing a good job. Kids are behaving, but they're not mastering the learning process. They're not feeling connected to their learning environment a lot. And so I think those are very critical pieces for school leaders to also consider when they're in these spaces. Yeah.
Yes. How do they connect best and then make that happen in a priority and intention? Again, goes back
Yeah.
to the intentionality of it all.
Yeah. So as we push for like a stronger digital integration in support systems, how do we ensure equity of access for all students, regardless of their background or their technology access situation they may have at home? What are some things that we can do to ensure equity of access?
Wow. That that is a hard question that I think still many people are trying to answer and most importantly fund in schools, particularly in I think all the time, but I'm gonna say particularly in 2025. And so I think it is actually connected to using your voice and using your position in leadership and as a member of a community with students attending schools and youth around you, attending schools, using your voice to take action. I think at a very large scale level, I think it does involve taking action with policy and looking
Mhm.
at what are the laws and things happening in my state, in my neighborhood, my town, whatever. But I think another uh, then the other piece is oftentimes thinking outside of the box. So
Mhm.
a lot of schools will and do have one-to-one technology, but I also see a lot of school districts that have one-to-one technology in the building, or for most kids, only in the building, that they're not able to take them home with them because they're going to break them, they're going to this, they're going to take them, they're not going to come back, those sort of thoughts, which are all very valid. Uh, However, there are ways and thinking outside of the box on how to promote that sense of pride and having a device that's connected and that potentially even the family could be connected on um, through a hotspot to be able to access job applications and mental health and doctor supports and researching, etc. um I mean it's it's very tough because there's so much going on right now, but I
Yes.
and has been, but I feel like it is super important to do as much as possible to make sure that every student has access, because that access is quite literally a lifeline to our future. There are I and I can't remember the specific details. I will try to find that for the future, but I feel like it's something like 80, or let's go with 75% of jobs that are going to be the skill sets needed for those jobs. Um, they require a knowledge level and comfort and adaptability with using technology in some way. And that's from in every sort of industry. So I think by investing in those efforts for access to all to the internet basically, and a tool to be able to have it on, and sh- teaching and embodying that culture of how to be online in a safe way, and what your digital footprint is, what it means for you today and in the future. How does it impact your relationships in real time, and in your future potential, career, workplace. Um, so yeah, access is key, and you really have to have people in leadership that embrace that, and they will fight with that in their words and in their research and in their advocacy for their students and for the futures of their communities to be thriving places where everybody can have a place to work and can be able to afford a home, etc., or apartment, rent something, so.
Yeah, I want to highlight. We we have one coming from Maisha Wilder on LinkedIn. She said, "Great question," and then she's like acknowledging. She's like, "That pause, it's something about the pause that makes you think, and the powerfulness of it, because sometimes we're so quick to respond to different things." So thank you, Maisha, for tuning in to the Tech It Up Talk podcast. We appreciate you. But it's really, I want to highlight that because sometimes that pause really takes a moment of reflection, and sometimes we have to pause and so, and even when we're talking about equity of access, and what you were just explaining, and just really reflect on our practices, our goals, and the direction that we're heading. And so, I love that. I love that. And so, for educators who are listening today and just beginning their journey towards a more connected, tech supported environment, what's one small step they can take this week to move in the right direction?
Only one? Okay, fine. I know. You're a new educator, you are completely overwhelmed. It is like you're waiting. If you haven't had spring break yet, you're like, "Please, I can get it. I can make it. I can make it." I'm just thinking of my first year teaching. Woo. Okay, so one small step. Ask somebody a question that you would typically uh not ask because you're embarrassed to ask because you don't want anybody to think that, "Oh, she doesn't know that. Oh my gosh." No, ask anyway, because I'm telling you, there is somebody, a colleague in your building, that would embrace and love to support you, help you, guide you, become a mentor, uh, be a friend. And I think sometimes we hold ourselves back by not asking questions, especially, I think of myself literally my first year teaching, I was 21 because I was the baby of my class. And, I was teaching high school juniors. I was teaching kids. Some of them were, 17. And of course to them I'm, mama.
Ancient, right?
But yeah. But yeah, I think that's what I would say to me. If, one thing you could do is ask a question, and that can be related to a curriculum that you have online. It can be related to something digital, or how you can incorporate technology into your lesson planning, how AI can help you, how it can level the playing field a little bit. Take a little work, a little load off of you, but still have you present. And I think, yeah, just take that risk and ask somebody. And you know what? If the first person does not respond in a way that feels respectful to you, then go ask somebody else. So that is the second thing I would say, even though you only ask for one. But ask the questions, be willing to be vulnerable, authentic, and maybe look a little silly. But let me tell you, in my experience, every time you have a question, majority of the time, unless it's right before lunch or right before the end of a very long day of professional development, um, you know, someone wants to share their knowledge with you, and they want to help you, and they know because they've been there before too.
Yeah, I love that. And I think even with asking the question, and I always say I'm failing forward every day, right? And that's great advice for any new educator coming in or anyone that's looking to make an impact and really, and this goes for our leaders too. You may be in education for 20 years. Don't be afraid to ask the questions because of how you feel someone's going to respond, because I think that helps with bringing us really experiencing that connectedness that we want our students to be able to do, because we want our students to be able to feel comfortable enough to ask questions that may not their peers may not agree with or make them feel uncomfortable or feel embarrassed in the classroom. And so it's definitely a practice that you model. And so I want to thank you for joining me today, Summer, and helping us reflect on the human side of education, of course, with student connectedness, and showing us that technology can definitely elevate connection rather than just replace it, right? And so we can definitely leverage technology in a completely different ways to really amplify, extend the work that we're doing, bring people together, help students become that whole child, have that whole child experience in school, access to resources, and so many different things. And so I definitely want to say thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope that the listeners were able to get some nuggets from you.
I hope so too. I would love if anybody would like to follow or connect with me on my LinkedIn. My name is fairly difficult to forget because most of us fish either in the mountains or at a summer beach. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love learning. I love connecting. And also follow me on Instagram at Mosaic Minds Consulting. I have a business and I'm working to just really amplify voices and connectivity and with leaders and educators. And I love to brainstorm, be a thought partner, and really just want to extend my impact and shine my light as much as I can so that others can shine theirs even brighter. So,
Ooh, I love that. And with that said, so listeners, if you're looking for a way to strengthen your school support systems and center connectedness in everything you do, follow Summer, stay in touch. And as always, I want to thank you guys for tuning in to the Tech It Up Talk podcast with Dr. Mack, where we explore how to level up learning, leadership, and school culture through innovation. So until next time, keep connecting, keep growing, and keep leading with tech. So thank you guys for joining us today. Oh, I love the hearts. I love the hearts. Thank you guys for joining us today. We'll see you next time.